All right. Welcome to another episode of Not Suitable for Adults, a podcast where we talk about kids shows and movies and how much we, the grown-ups, like them. Observant listeners may have noticed that this is not the voice of Rich or Natalie. It's some jumped-up British guy. I'm Matt, and I'm from Drinkipedia, a podcast that is a bit more adult than this, so probably not suitable. That's all right.
I like the train that you were going for.
Yeah, there was something there. There was something in that.
Yeah, I was riding along. Choo choo.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks. And I'm joined by my co-hosts. You've heard the voice of Jason.
Hello. Generous of you to refer to me as a grown-up.
Yeah,
but I'll take it.
Well, you know, it's the season of giving.
And I am Tiny Tim.
Yeah. And Audra.
Hello.
Are you feeling adult? Are you an adult?
I adult regularly.
Yeah?
I do. I would say I adult regularly. Yes.
How are you both doing today?
I'm doing well.
Are you ready to record an episode of someone else's podcast?
I am. I'm excited. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the show that we're going to talk about, so I'm in a good mood.
Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm quite excited about it because without even the prompt of this show, I consume a lot of kids shows myself.
Yeah.
As a 24-year-old man at the time of this recording, I watch a lot of TV Y7.
Yeah.
You do have a younger brother. You do have a younger brother.
Yeah, I would feel like actually he's more of an excuse for me to watch more kids shows instead of vice versa. I just love, just love seeing what's out there,
Also, it's TVY7, but in this case, Y equals 4, so it's technically 28. And so you're fine. You're good still. We're all good. We can all watch it.
Y7.
Yeah, Y7. That's just a little maths joke to start things off.
It took me a hot minute. I'm not going to lie to you.
So a huge thank you to Rich and Natalie for allowing us onto their feed as part of the podcast Secret Santa project, scheme, adventure, thing. There are 10 podcasts involved, releasing episodes where we essentially remix each other's shows. So we have the same classic, not suitable for adults format for you today, where we're going to be talking about a magical children's TV show. But instead of the familiar tones of Rich and Natalie, you've got us three.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry in advance to any of their regular listeners. Just give us a try. Or if you don't feel like it and you're thinking, where the heck are Rich and Natalie? Go listen to the podcast that they're guesting on. We'll put a link in the description and you can go hear them try another format. Maybe they drew Drinkipedia and it's one of those classic Secret Santa situations where you draw each other. That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We don't know. So Jason, you mentioned there about you being a little bit childlike and how you watch...
An understatement.
Yeah, you watch a lot of Y7. Is it Y7? Is that what it is?
Well, just generally like
TV.
Very young kids TV shows. Yeah. Like I'm not Mickey Mouse Clubhouse up in here. No shame if you are, but yeah, I dabble. So like I grew up very much in the 2000s Cartoon Network Toonami era of cartoons, and I kind of never left really. There's a lot of great stuff like Netflix originals. The new era of Cartoon Network I'll spy every now and then because again my brother is 9 years old, so he's like a big fan of like We Bare Bears, like Craig of the Creek is really cute, Adventure Time, all this other stuff, like this new age stuff is, and I really like it because even though it is geared towards children, maybe it's not as in depth as say like a Christopher Nolan film or a like a David Lynch thing.
Yeah,
but there's still some really good themes to be had out there.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a lot of poignant points to be trying to poignant points.
Yeah, a lot of poignant points to point.
Yeah, a lot of poignant points out there,
It really is.
But there's some good stuff to be trying to teach kids at a young age. And I think, especially with this new era of cartoons, I've found there's like this trend of like empathy and emotional intelligence and awareness.
Definitely.
Yes, please.
And a lot of cute, charming aesthetics as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of darkness in the world. Why not just let it go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the shows that I watched in my youth were unapologetically abrasive.
A lot of fart jokes.
I'm thinking you got Angry Beavers, where I think there was just a lot of destruction.
Yeah. Those 90s Cartoon Network shows were very anarchic. They were very just idiots behaving stupidly.
Ed and Eddie, their whole goal. Yeah, rocket power. That's great. Ed and Eddie, their whole goal is to get a 25-cent jawbreaker. Yeah. As if 1, 25 cents is really hard to procure. Hey. But then 2, that's their whole life mission.
Look, when you live in a cul-de-sac and you're kids and you got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jawbreakers are the thing. I personally am so pleased with the fact that there are a lot of kids shows that are a bit more deep than the shows that I was raised on. Yeah. Hopefully kids are going to come out better than me.
Exactly, yeah. Hopefully.
That's the goal. And when we drew Not Suitable for Adults as our podcast, my first thought was, oh no, Audra and I don't really watch a lot of kids shows. So we looked to Jason for some advice. Yes. And you're in a way, we've joked about this on the podcast, especially when you get drunk over on Drinkipedia.
Yes.
You tend to say, you're my mum and dad, I'm the child, I'm coming to present my project.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
and then we feel really irresponsible because you're our child, but you're liquored up.
Yeah. Yes, and we haven't fed you in weeks.
It's okay, I'm a big boy. I got weeks of food stored up in this belly. It comes from the idea that 1, I'm only 2 or 3 years younger than both of you.
Yep.
But then 2, we have a great friendship dynamic where we're all looking out for each other. It just kind of slots in nicely.
It does.
That you guys are married as well. Mm-hmm. So it slots in nicely that you guys are my mom and dad. I do act like an infant when I get drunk on our podcast as well.
Yeah.
It just works.
It does.
It works nicely. Mm-hmm. But yes, I am the child of Matt and Audra.
But
biologically.
But yeah.
But, yeah. Which is wild because you're both white and I'm Asian as heck.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I'm the most Asian guy you've ever seen.
So with that in mind, we left the selection of the show up to you, Jason.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And what was the TV show you chose?
I chose Over the Garden Wall, which premiered in like 2016 or so. It's quite old.
2014 I've got in my notes.
Whoa, it's quite old. And I only recently found out about it, but it's currently on HBO Max if you got it. It was by Cartoon Network, and I had heard it from a friend, but really I was enamored by it because it kind of had that same aesthetic that I was talking about. The We Bare Bears, the Adventure Time.
Interesting you mentioned that. The creator of Over the Garden Wall was an executive story artist or like
storyboard artist?
Yes, for the first 2 seasons of Adventure Time.
It's this era of Cartoon Network is really birthed out of Adventure Time. Because that's the same case with, I believe, Steven Universe as well.
Okay.
And I think We Bare Bears, where those creators came out of storyboard artists for Adventure Time. So I didn't know that, but it certainly fit the aesthetic of what's going on.
Yes.
And I haven't delved super deep into any of those shows, but what I have seen of those shows, they're all cute and charming and secretly poignant.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if this wasn't as great as the others on the off chance that it wasn't, we might as well take a shot. It would be indicative of the era that we're in terms of cartoons.
Mm-hmm. The thing I liked about this, as someone who watched Adventure Time over the age that I think it was originally intended for,
right?
I loved that it was both of those themes simultaneously, kind of the child-appropriate vibes and adventures, but with some of those more advanced emotional type of concepts.
Yeah.
To wrap your head around and wrap your heart around.
Exactly. It's what made Avatar really popular when it came out on Netflix during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that, like, for anyone who didn't watch Avatar when it originally came out, it's surprisingly good for what is supposed to be a quote-unquote kids cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
It does hit those notes and those beats that we're looking for as adults in terms of storytelling.
Certainly, as an adult who has very little interest in children's properties, I chose the right podcast out of the hat here. I thought Over the Garden Wall was magical. It was captivating. The sort of 11-minute runtime of the episodes, and there only being 10 episodes, really helped because I could process it as like a film split into 10 parts.
Yes.
Yep. It ticked
and
all
each
the
of
boxes
those parts
for me.
are like really iconic, right? Like,
yeah.
Each of those could stand like as people who watch like SpongeBob. There's a couple episodes of SpongeBob that really stand out.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, remember the hash-slinging slasher episode?
Yeah.
Each of these episodes, I would argue, stand out in that similar vein. It's a very, not condensed, but it's a very like concise story.
Yeah, we should probably say a little bit about it in terms of its setting and stuff like that. So Over the Garden Wall is a dark fantasy comedy drama sort of adventure program that follows two brothers, and we're sort of dropped right into the story where they're just walking through this fantastical wood.
They're lost in the wood.
They're lost in the woods. Very classic fantasy trope there. And yeah, our two main characters, voiced by Elijah Wood, is the eldest brother who's sort of like a teenager.
And can I say, knowing that it was voiced by Elijah Wood, I had a premonition of like what this character might be.
Okay.
Based on like the things that Elijah Wood is as a person, but also has played.
Are you saying he was going to be like the guy from Spy Kids 3D? Is that what you were thinking? How can you forget that?
Is that Elijah Wood?
That's Elijah Wood's greatest role.
I hate you so much. No, but it kind of like the awkward, like overtly awkward person. We all kind of know the trope, the Tom Holland, like, I guess if you kind of want it, I maybe. But he takes it up to 11, Elijah Wood.
Mm-hmm. We have lived the trope.
We're all Elijah Wood.
Yeah. But again, he like takes it up to 11. Some of the plot lines of this character is like, man, that was your adversary? That was your big inner conflict?
It's some classic 15-year-old boy stuff.
Yeah.
I've been there. Other listeners might remember that. We're talking poetry. We're talking pining over girls.
Clarinet.
Yep. Everything. Everything.
And then his brother, Greg. Oh, Elijah Wood plays Wart, the older brother.
Yes.
But then his half-brother, Greg. Oh, just an amazing juxtaposition between Elijah Wood's character as well.
Yeah. It's the straight man, funny man, like, duo, but them being half-brothers, and it almost takes the funny man to ridiculous levels, where this kid is smart and intuitive beyond his age in the terms of the dialogue that's coming out of him, but is a complete, almost ADHD in his behavior in the, there's a frog, there's a...
But he's a kid. Yeah. He's just a little guy, and he's so adorably optimistic.
Yes.
Because he is a little guy.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, and those little pantaloons. Gosh.
Do you want a pair?
Yeah. After watching this, I was looking at cosplay. And man, some people have made some adorable pantaloons.
So speaking of pantaloons, if you kind of look at the cover images or promotional images for the show, one, it kind of gives you a very, as you said, macabre kind of fantasy vibes.
Yes.
Almost like a old-timey steampunky D&D almost kind of deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I noticed right off the bat that it also gave off kind of a 1920s, very early steamboat Mickey kind of vibes.
Yes.
And we'll talk about it in a later segment, but I felt vindicated when that animation style kind of got referenced in the show as well.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful animation style. Again, it blends that beautiful kind of cutesy, adorable Adventure Time stuff, but also with references and homages to the 1920s kind of early cartoon animation.
Yeah, all the sort of backdrops, especially in the woods, which was the majority of the scenes, had a quite German expressionist art style to it, in that it was lots of long shadows playing with light to create depth in texture. And it felt haunting. It was haunting without having to be so scary.
And it's especially interesting to watch because they are using this depth of field and layers with this like really two-dimensional art style. So it's like these layers upon layers that adds a really beautiful and intentional feel to it. Loved it.
It's a masterclass in animation. When this era of animation started kicking off, especially with Adventure Time, I kind of slagged it because in our animation there was a lot of focus on like lines and cell work or cell shading, and with Adventure Time they were like 2 dots and a smile. That's the face, right? In a hole in a dude, like there's a hole in a bear hat, and that's the guy's face. But it's become evident, especially with this particular cartoon, about how it's more about the technique and less about flashiness of animation.
Yeah.
There's some really good hidden subtleties that you can tell this is a masterwork, this is a love of art. We're keeping it at 10 episodes at 11 minutes, and it's just really masterful in terms of both storytelling, animation. Like, we're keeping it condensed, we're keeping every moment good.
Yeah. it is a little scary in places, I think. I try to put myself in the mind of a child and think, okay, I was shown some pretty messed up things as a kid that in hindsight you go, that's terrifying. Like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory comes to mind. But so I use that as a barometer for everything.
Right.
And I think, yeah, there's a lot of like faces and shadows that could sort of give a young child nightmares, but there's nothing that really, darkness never lingers.
Mm-mm. Especially, there's so many whimsical moments.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gregory, the younger child, composer beyond his year. No, he does phenomenally adorable songs to highlight certain moments.
Are you thinking of Potatoes and Molasses?
I am thinking of Potatoes and Molasses. If you can't see it, put on your glasses. It's absolutely adorable and without the weight of the world on it.
Exactly. And anytime we kind of went into the deep dark, they always pulled it out. I think especially with Greg too. Like Greg's such a great character. It's kind of that beat for beat kind of thing where it's like, oh, I'm freaking out about all these different things that I have to think about. By the way, there's a gorilla running around. It's kind of
yeah.
It's
if we hang out of a tree, we can kick it.
Yeah. So even when it gets quite macabre and dark and scary, it always brings it back to the levity of things, or it really says, but does it matter that much, really?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, I watched it with my 9-year-old brother, and I don't think he ever really blinked an eye at any of the scary quote-unquote parts.
Okay, so we know at least for a 9-year-old and above.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Something for me, as an adult watching it, I loved to see Greg and Wirt together because Greg is the happy-go-lucky child and Wirt is that emotional 15-ish year-old boy. I am both of them. Even as an adult, I am still both the emotional one and this happy-go-lucky child.
Yeah. And so with that, we can sort of infer, maybe that's the message. We're both Greg. There's a Greg and a Wirt in both of us. And it's all about finding the balance between them. All right, should we take a little break and play a little game?
Oh my God, I would love to.
I'll peek behind the curtain a bit while I was looking at the production notes for how to make an episode of Not Suitable for Adults. I noticed the whimsical activity section where often Rich and Natalie will just ask each other some cool questions, like anything that sparks some interesting conversation. But I saw the word activity and I take that as game, and any regular Drinkipedia listeners will know I love to make little games.
Little games that make Jason and I fooled.
Yep.
A little angry.
This one, I'm not going to try and trick you so much because it's not really the theme of the show.
Sure.
So it's going to be kind of loosely based on Over the Garden Wall. And this game is called Over the Garden and then a gap. And I'll give you a clue, and you have to respond by saying over the garden and then your answer. The answer will always rhyme with the word wall.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay, there's like 4 words.
You think. And so buzz in by saying your name. So you say Jason.
Right.
Jason, give us a practice of your buzzer.
Jason.
Audra.
And
you don't get the point unless you say over the garden and then the name of the answer. So, for example, if I said, this one's just a test, there's always a Build-A-Bear and food court in this place. You would say,
Audra.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, why did you get us real buzzers?
Over the Garden Mall.
There we go. There we go. Okay. So let's start proper. Say your name to buzz in, and we'll go for this. A piece of fabric wrapped around your head, sometimes around babies.
Jason.
Yep.
Over the garden shawl?
Correct. 1 point.
Do you wrap that around your head? I guess old like nonas do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Question 2. Medicine, formal, and tennis are all types of what?
Audra.
Yeah.
Over the Garden Ball.
Yes, correct.
Medicine is a ball? Oh, medicine balls. Formal. Oh, God. I thought ball, but I didn't think it made sense with anything else. Okay, gotcha. English is weird. I'm bilingual.
Okay, 1 point apiece. This is very close. This is nice. Mm-hmm. At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we will have revenge.
Oh, no. I should know this. I love Star Wars.
Audra.
Yep.
Over the Garden Mall.
Yep.
But Darth.
Oh, my God. Oh,
Spelled differently this time.
Yes.
Oh, Jason, you lost the Star Wars question.
What, Maul? But
I thought that was a gimme.
I'm too competitive for my own good.
No, this is good. Oh, God.
Question 4. You are in my power, and you will do everything I say. Therefore, you are my...
Audra?
Yep.
Over the garden thrall?
Correct.
Oh.
Kind of running away with this one.
I love wordplay.
Question 5. Mount Everest is here.
Jason?
Yep.
Over the garden tall?
No, that's a good guess, though. It's a good guess.
Audra.
Yeah.
Over the garden Nepal.
Yep.
Oh, my God! Is he? Oh, okay. Oh.
Question 6. On top of spaghetti, all covered with cheese.
On top of spaghetti.
Audra.
Yes.
Meatball.
Oh, you didn't say over the garden, so I can't give you the point. I can't give you the point. I'm so sorry.
Jason.
Yeah.
Oh, over the garden meatball.
There we go. Over the garden meatball.
So interesting. Oh, my God.
Angel, Victoria, and Niagara are examples of...
Jason.
Yes.
Over the garden fall.
I'll take it. It's waterfall, but I'll take
Waterfall.
falls. I'll take it. Question 8. There's 10 questions, by the way.
I love it.
Question 8. All for one and...
Jason.
Yes.
Over the garden all?
I can't...
What did you say? One for all?
All for one and...
One for all.
I'll give you it because you've talked your way through it.
Because you stopped at a certain point.
Sure, I was looking for over the garden, one for all.
Yeah. Okay, it was several words there. Oh, that was confusing.
Just to make this tense and close, because it's now 4 points apiece, we'll say,
Is it really?
We'll say you got the point.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, archaic humans who lived in Eurasia until around 40,000 years ago.
Audra.
Yes.
Over the garden Neanderthal.
Oh.
And make sure you ask him nicely.
Oh.
And finally, Tom Cruise stars in this series of spy films, but you've kind of got to change how you pronounce the second word to make the answer fit.
Jason.
Yes.
Over the garden Mission Impossible.
Yes, there we go.
I was trying to change the first word. Mission Impossible.
5 points apiece. Everyone's a winner. Happy days.
Wow.
Let's go to Promoville.
We're all podcasts that dig podcasting and Christmas.
We enjoy giving so much, we're giving our shows away.
In the spirit of Christmas, we're going to do the work for another podcaster.
But Santa's been randomized. We're getting random new hosts.
Wait. We've got to do a random show?
Good thing they're all so awesome. Movies, nostalgia, drinks, games, fact and fiction.
So much good stuff.
I can do that show. They can do our show. Santa says.
When Christmas arrives, we'll have guests on our feed.
You'll find us elsewhere in someone else's world.
Having fun with their creative experience and doing what they do.
Podcast Secret Santa Exchange with
The Movie Cellar.
On second watch.
Not suitable for adults.
Geeksploration, the podcast.
Grand Rapidians play video games.
Featured creatures.
Drinkipedia.
90s Court.
Suck my fanfic.
Black Case Diaries movie and TV podcast.
Check out the fun!
And we are back from Promoville. Now, the next half of this episode is going to contain spoilers for Over the Garden Wall. It is very much a narrative-based show. Not very long, as we've said, only 10 episodes. So if you've been hooked by the first half of this conversation, pause the podcast. Go and watch it. Like Jason said, it's on HBO Max, not Spawn. And then come back and listen to this half. If you're not really bothered and you don't care about spoilers, keep listening. So the first episode, The Old Grist Mill, that's where we get introduced to our characters, and we meet a lumberjack.
The Woodsman.
The Woodsman.
Played by Christopher Lloyd.
Yes.
Who's great.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Very that manic old man voice.
Yeah. And he's kind of doing the same thing he did in Back to the Future, where he's always like, don't do a thing, but gotta do the thing.
Yes.
I know you're gonna do it, but I gotta say it in this voice.
And he is chopping down wood from a certain type of tree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And is collecting that oil to keep the soul of his daughter alive inside the lamp.
Right. Which we aren't introduced to right off the bat, but he is kind of this dark character that represents maybe our antagonists.
Yeah.
I like the mystery behind it all.
Yeah, we're certainly led to think that he's the villain of the piece.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because we do meet him in a very dark and suspicious manner, where he's taking this wood and he's pulling the black oil from it to keep the lantern.
And we keep being told about this thing called the Beast, right?
Yes.
Without really knowing what it is.
It's just referred to as the Beast, sometimes the Darkness by some of the other characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just kind of ominous. And each episode is kind of like a mini adventure, but that keeps the main story rolling along.
Yeah.
The second episode, they help a bluebird called Beatrice out of a bush.
Yeah.
And then she becomes their traveling companion and gives them the idea to go to the Good Witch of the Woods.
Adelaide.
And if, like, Greg and Wart are kind of the optimist and the pessimist, Beatrice kind of represents, like, this Han Solo kind of like, I'm in it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a rough and tough kind of person who will do whatever it takes to get through this wood.
Yes.
And survive, where it's kind of weird because these two kids are just more or less kids who are wandering around aimlessly.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a really good addition to the group.
Yeah, definitely more mature than the other two.
Mm-hmm. Adding a lot of common sense to the overly dramatic and the everything is fine.
Yeah.
She's like, no, we need to ask for directions right now.
Yeah, which shows up in that second episode because they're like, let's go to a village with a bunch of people. And they're all pumpkin-headed people.
The pumpkin people.
Yeah, the pumpkin people. And it, like, to talk about how macabre it is and, like, is this appropriate with your children? That second episode is incredibly macabre.
Yes.
It's incredibly dark and eatery. But as soon as you get past that, it gets, like, to the zone of silly again.
Yeah.
And, like, charming.
I thought that episode was a good metaphor for death.
Oh, yeah.
It was something to be scared of to begin with, but then just talked about as, well, it happens to all of us, so we need to deal with it.
That's true.
You shouldn't be here yet.
Yeah. That kind of, like, ominous, without any explanation of, like, well, we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I get it. I die. Oh, this is terrible.
Soon, like 6 months or 60 years?
Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Is this a metaphor? What's happening?
Are the pumpkin heads necessary? Do we just dance all day? Like, oh yeah, there was that really cute scene that's really scary and messed up. But it's like a pumpkin-headed person carving a pumpkin head.
Yes. What's going on there?
Yeah. Episode 2 is a phenomenal measuring stick for whether or not this show is, like, appropriate, I believe, for your child.
Right.
If you watch the first and second episode and say, yeah, there's some dark there, but I think they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's some stuff that is a little bit darker, but not so much so that it's going to throw you through a loop.
Yeah. Then the third episode, School Town Follies, a little bit more whimsical in places.
Yeah, because there's animal, like, Disney people, and there's school children. None of them talk.
Nope.
Yeah.
Because that's what the school's for, Jason. The school is to teach them how to read and write.
Specifically to teach these actual animals to count.
Yeah.
They can play instruments. They can play complicated instruments.
Yeah, and they cry, but they don't talk.
No.
Oh, gosh.
It's kind of like a jab at Disney almost, the way it feels.
Yeah, a lot of ways.
This is where we see the Potatoes and Molasses song.
Yeah.
Absolutely adorable.
What a slap that song is.
And it's got good twists and turns in its own mini plot that teaches a good lesson about life from people's different perspectives. Like, there's always another side to everyone's story.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was kind of a twist ending with the second one, but this one really hit because they kept talking about, like, all these antagonists in this teacher's life, and it turns out that each of those antagonists had their own side that made them actually quite a good person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're just trying to do right by themselves and those around them.
Right.
Everyone is a three-dimensional person. That's a good lesson to learn.
When we talk about the idea of, like, is this for kids or is this for adults or can it be for both? I think this one hits the nail where the teacher just kept going, like, well, now children, we're going to go ahead and learn. And I wish we didn't have to learn because that rascal Jimmy, whatever his name is, cheated
Jimmy
on me.
Brown.
Yeah, Jimmy Brown cheated on me and left me in the dirt. And she, like, sprinkles that in every conversation.
Yeah.
And it's funny to adults because it's like, why is this in a children's cartoon?
Yeah.
And it's good to, like, my 9-year-old brother was like, what is wrong with this teacher? Why is she going on about this?
Wow, she really needs to take care of her mental health. Has she talked to someone about this?
She has not processed this breakup whatsoever.
Got to talk to a therapist about Jimmy Brown.
Exactly. And then, you know, as we're adults talking about the ideas like mental health and like relationships, the ultimate end stinger is Jimmy Brown was the gorilla walking around this entire time. Like that's so good.
It's great.
That's that perfect balance of like adults and complex and kind of dark, and then also none of this matters. It's just silly.
Also, I'm just going to throw this reading out there. Potatoes and molasses, good thing for the balance of life that we talk about. It's like you got to have the potatoes and the molasses. You can't have either. The potatoes are like getting your work done, like maintaining and sustaining relationships. And then molasses is all the sweet stuff that comes from doing that.
It's Wirt and Gregory. They are potatoes and molasses.
There we go.
Oh my God.
Is Beatrice the spoon? I don't know. I don't know yet. I'll workshop it.
Let's re-examine after we finish all the episodes.
This will be my essay afterwards.
So episode 4 is Songs of the Dark Lantern, and this is sort of the only sort of filler episode in the whole thing. There's a bit of a revelation of the main narrative at the end, but for the most part, this is just in a tavern asking for directions.
Yeah.
And talking to lots of different people. And you know what I'm like. I mean, listeners might not, but I think this episode was a metaphor that was a really damning indictment of capitalism. It was lots of individual people saying, this person is the tailor, and this is the baker, and this is the highwayman. And then there was that really weird highwayman song.
Yeah.
Oh,
where the highwayman,
was trippy.
It was so trippy.
Yeah.
He got all bendy and curvy, but everyone still applauded him the same as everyone else. And that's because capitalism needs an underclass to survive, otherwise it doesn't work. And I thought that was just a really clever way of putting that into a kid's show.
The Highwayman song was, I'd say, one of the scariest moments of the show for me.
Really? That's interesting.
I'd rate it up there.
Yeah, real quick, Audra, what were your top 3 scariest moments from the show?
Number 1, being asked this question on the spot. No, I would say the 3 that got me the most would probably be the Highwayman song, just because it comes out of nowhere and the angles of the animation are made to be similar to what they would be, but just different enough to make you feel weird. Auntie Whispers, who we will talk about in a later...
Oh, yeah.
Very terrifying.
Yeah.
Voiced by Tim Curry.
Very Ghibli-esque, Studio Ghibli-esque. In the way that they have animated her. And then the Beast.
The Beast.
As number 1. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as you should, and we'll talk later about what the Beast represents.
They also get the Fred the horse in this episode.
Oh, of course.
The bulk of this episode is, I would say, filler, except this is where we think the woodsman is the Beast.
Yes.
Because they mention that the Beast must have the oil for the lantern to survive.
Right.
And so... we are led to believe it's the woodsman.
Right.
But then we get that one scene at the end of this episode where we learn that the woodsman has made sort of a Faustian pact with the Beast that he must keep refilling the oil in the lamp to keep the soul of his daughter alive. And that's a deal that the woodsman and the Beast have made together.
So the woodsman isn't intentionally trying to keep people lost, but...
All right, episode 5, Mad Love. This is where we get a bit of John Cleese in a big mansion.
Yes, this was one I didn't have to look up at all. It was very much John Cleese. It was so funny because it starts off with Wart and Greg sitting at a table with a man we don't know. And they're just like, hey there, uncle.
Yes.
Like the audience knows immediately, that's not their uncle. That's not what's happening.
Yep.
Greg doesn't know.
Oh, yeah. Come on, Unky. That's also the first time I've ever heard the phrase. Unky? Yeah.
It's horrible, isn't it?
God, it's
On
so
Greg,
cute
it's great.
when he says it.
Yeah, exactly. But they're only trying to... The plot is they're trying to out this very rich person.
Yes.
Of 2 pennies.
2 pennies, yes.
For their journey that is requisite. But the rich man has a problem where he encountered a ghost.
Yes.
Quote unquote. And Greg is super into looking at ghosts. So let's find out who it is. We find out in a classic Over the Garden Walls like twist.
Yeah.
It's not in fact a ghost. It's another person. This mansion is so large, 2 separate people with the same industry.
Yep. They sell tea.
They sell tea, grow and sell tea, live in the same mansion, but it's so large that they
it overlapped and they didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say this one was the one about capitalism because who needs a house so big you get lost in it?
Yeah,
but you find love.
Money, well, no, but money blinds you to love. Like you miss out on seeing love because you've got too much money. Your house is too big, so you don't notice the emotions that are in front of you.
Also, ghost hunt. Date ghosts.
Yeah.
Find love in the supernatural. Am I right?
I don't think that's the message.
Maybe love is closer than you think.
Also, Fred leaves. Oh, Fred.
Oh, yeah, Fred the horse stays there.
Yeah.
So who's he played by?
The guy you're thinking of when you hear his voice.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I looked it up, and he's a guy who's in like an episode of every sitcom because he's literally got like a long face, you know, like the joke about horses, and he looks like a sad horse. And so he voiced a sad horse, and that makes sense.
He got a job as a tea horse.
Yeah, he's a tea horse now. The next episode, Lullaby in Frogland, I thought was the most whimsical of all of the episodes.
It might be my favorite episode.
It was good.
It was good. They get on the boat that they didn't get the 2 pennies for.
Nope.
And this boat's got some rich people on it.
Yeah, rich frogs.
By people, I mean frogs.
Yes.
Some debutante Louisianan-style frogs.
Yes, which is kind of, we should say as well, the whole vibe of everything over the garden wall is very like 1890s Americana kind of thing.
Yes.
I don't know how else to say it apart from like American Gothic. Everyone is American Gothic.
Yeah.
Even to these fancy frogs and their marching band.
Yes.
They got bands, they got fancy peoples, they got flies on platters. Oh, Greg and Wart also travel with their own separate frog friend.
Yes.
Who the running joke, and I love this running joke in the show, is Greg cannot figure out a perfect name for this frog.
Nope.
And so thus far he's named it Wart Jr. Or Wart.
Yep.
Benjamin Franklin, President George Washington. What else in this by now?
I do not know, but the opening joke of the show is Gregory going through names that you can see. Okay, these are probably names for the frog. And then he ends with, this is a list of all the worst names that you can give a frog.
Mr. Kitty is what he starts out with.
Yeah. That's very Adventure Time, that joke.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And cracked me up.
Yeah, it's a fantastic joke. Throughout their adventures as they get stopped by the frog police or something.
Because they snuck onto the boat.
They snuck onto the boat, yeah. The frog they've been traveling with belts out an amazing, beautiful singing voice. Can you edit that?
Yeah, I can do.
Thank you. Belts out an amazing, singing, beautiful...
You said the same words.
Yeah. All right. That's fine. Edit it, Matt. Thank you.
Resounding singing voice.
Yes.
Throw in some more adjectives just randomly. Just say them and I'll pick from
a melodic, sultry...
There we go.
Singing voice in which he kind of finds a place on the boat. Classic jokes. 2 kids in a trench coat with a frog head.
Yeah.
Yep. And Gregory says, noticing all the other frogs have clothes, he's like, he has a heart and he needs to wear socks because he's not wearing any clothes. And at the end of the episode...
Benjamin Franklin
needs socks. And at the end of the episode, Gregory decides to leave his frog with the rest of the frog people because they can give him socks.
And a record deal, apparently.
Yeah.
That's not the important part. The important part is that he got socks.
He's not cold anymore. Also, in a very cute sense, he comes back to the party.
Yes.
Of Greg and Wart, which is so cute.
Yeah. At the end of this episode, we kind of get a revelation about Adelaide and that Beatrice,
that's right.
the bird, is taking them to Adelaide for her own gain to kind of free her family from being bluebirds because they're not actually bluebirds. And she's not one either. And yeah, it's kind of treachery. It's like the person we trusted. It's that classic fairy tale stuff of the person who is guiding you is actually not guiding you.
Yeah.
Except we get the third dimension of the remorse from Beatrice and instantly trying to then save Wirt and Greg. And yeah, they escape, but they go their separate ways at this point because Wirt feels betrayed by Beatrice's lies.
She did lie to them and try to get them enslaved for all time. So, yep.
Yeah.
I'd probably feel betrayed.
It's a classic, we need to separate the group a little bit to create some conflict and tension and vulnerability.
Yep.
And it works fine. I think it worked fine. It wasn't like mind-blowing by any sense, but it was good.
Then we move on to the ringing of the bell, and this is where Auntie Whispers comes in. Wirt and Greg end up in this creepy grandma's cottage looking thing, and it's like this is just a twist on a fairy tale, right? Like this is, of all of the episodes, this is the most grim fairy tales.
Yeah.
Like in that there is a niece who is like kept captive and is sweeping the floors, and an evil Auntie Whispers voiced by Tim Curry. It's the Studio Ghibli type character that Audra was talking about.
She eats baby black sea turtles for some reason, just because.
We're supposed to not trust her and try and escape the cottage, but then twist, it's the other way round, and Auntie Whispers is actually the one stopping this monstrous woman from getting out into the world and eating children.
Who is the niece? Yeah.
The niece?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly grim.
With 2 M's.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it might be the scariest episode. I feel like the pumpkin one was the most macabre.
Yes.
Because again, it was talking about death. But this was quite frightening.
She does have big teeth, and she floats through the darkness after them.
Yeah.
So now we get towards the end of the whole series. The final 3 episodes, really, the tension ramps up, and these ones, they didn't feel like 30 minutes together. It was a real emotional climax of everything.
Yeah,
but
we kind of go away with the singular adventure in a story or in an episode format.
And in this episode, like, Wirt's kind of lost hope in ever getting out of the woods, but Greg, being Greg, still has all of that optimism. So they settle down by a tree and sort of to rest, and Greg goes off into a magical world. And Jason, you were talking about this earlier, the Disney-esque animations.
Right, yes, yeah, absolutely. So Greg falls asleep, and in his dream, we get the full epitome of this kind of 1920s, kind of 30s, 40s, silly art style really come to fruition because of all the little creatures that he meets, and the animation style that he goes through really embodies that. Even so, I think his adversary in the dream is like the North Wind, and even the wind has that aesthetic where it's just a cloud with a face, and its feet are just cloud feet.
Yeah,
you know, he's got a beard because he's cloud and it's fluffy.
Bubblegum surrealism is how I would describe it.
Ooh, that's a very good one. Yeah, and it really hammers in the idea that the rest of the show is based on that aesthetic, not just because we have this scene, but on top of that, Greg mixed with all the characters matches perfectly. He doesn't look out of place at all. He is in these old-timey pantaloons with a tea kettle upside down his hat. There's, I think, music playing in the background as well.
Yeah.
Might be our second musical number that we have in the show.
Up in Cloud City.
Yeah. And that really hammers in home that this macabre art style and the animation flow is all very intentional to create this feelings that we've had. We've talked about all these episodes about how they're dark or they're scary or they're more adult, and that's all been intentional from the get-go.
Yes, and I'll come back to that with a reading of what I think that means after we reveal the next piece, which is as Greg saves the Cloud City, he's then granted one wish, and he wants to get out of the woods with his brother. But the Queen of Cloud City says, no, can't do that, because the beast has already claimed your brother Wirt. And so essentially Greg then, I don't think they explicitly say it, but essentially Greg innocently wishes that they swap places.
Oh.
And all of a sudden Wirt's no longer the one who has the tree growing around him, it's Greg.
Oh, that's an amazing, I literally got chills down my spine, because the point of the episode was Greg had been given the position of leadership.
Yes.
By a downtrodden Wirt. So to have your, I assume, like 4 to 7-year-old brother take the place of leadership and try to grow up in a sense. Because Greg never really grows up. Greg is still silly till the end. But he kind of grows up in the sense that now he has to try and move his silliness a little bit aside to make sure that his brother and himself are taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's such a good point, because it's within a 10-minute span, a story about growing up.
Yeah. Then we get the twist. We get the reveal that everything taking place over the garden wall is is a dream, it's pure fantasy. Because we are in episode 9, the penultimate episode, we are taken back to Halloween night before all of this happened, when Wirt and Greg, or Wirt's taking Greg trick-or-treating, and they're all in the antics of Halloween night, and we see Wirt's life. We see he's just a teenage boy who's trying to impress a girl, and Greg's his annoying kid brother who has to tag along. It's all very relatable, and we get this whole backstory.
How did we end up
over the garden wall?
I was wondering, when we first started watching this show, why are they dressed like this? How are they not from this world?
Yes.
But then we get to see that Gregory is an elephant. He's dressed as an elephant. That's why he has a silver teapot.
Oh. Yeah.
And I don't know what Wirt is.
He's Jim from The Office. Like, he kind of just threw stuff together.
Yeah.
And he's not trying because he's over it and he's into poetry, I guess.
And girls.
Sarah, who is so into him.
So into him.
And he just can't see that Jason Thunderburger.
Yeah, because Jason Thunderburger is all that and more.
He's the total package.
Yeah.
Gosh, but he's so lame.
He's so lame.
But when
hey, Sarah.
But when you're 15 and you have a crush on someone, you just don't get it.
That's fair.
You don't get it.
Yeah, because we get a jock character talking to Sarah, and he goes, "See ya, Jimmy." And we're like, that's not Jason Thunderburger. So Jason Thunderburger must be the alpha.
Yeah.
And he just walks in with a full-on, like, 3-piece suit.
Green suit, yeah.
Yeah. With a football head.
Yeah. But that's the mind of a 15-year-old boy.
Exactly.
You're just, like, nervous about literally anyone who poses a threat to your held belief that you will be with this girl.
Yeah. It's such a good episode. And it really shows, it really breaks the story up almost.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah. At the end of the episode, they climb over the titular garden wall.
Right. Oh, the cop in this episode is
so funny.
Because he's just pulling pranks on the kids running around.
He never steps out of his cop car. He's always using the speaker.
Yeah.
You guys better get inside. I'm just kidding. Happy Halloween.
Yeah. Hey, you kids, get down. I'm really serious. Get down, but not on that side.
Yeah. Yes, that's it. Yeah. And they stumble over the wall and drown.
I thought it was going to be a story where they've died and this is heaven.
Yeah. It was a little bit, because they address death so much that I thought it could be. But then I was like, no, it's a kid's show. They're kids.
Thankfully.
They're fine.
So
we then get this sense that everything that has happened in the previous episodes and that will happen in the final episode is taking place inside Wirt's head. This is his mind as he is drowning, or at the very least the collective delusions of both of them. Mm-hmm. But the way I'd like to read it is that it is all Wirt's anxieties and his worries all flashing before his eyes, but apart from the cloud segment, the cloud city scene. And that's like the sort of world that is being imagined by Gregory. And that's, if this was all Gregory's delusion, it would look much more like that for the full thing. Mm-hmm. That's my reading of it anyway.
Yeah. I will say that they wake up finally after the story in Over the Garden Wall finishes, which is Wirt and Beatrice link up again.
Yep.
After Greg sacrifices himself to be with the beast.
Yep.
And become an Adelaide tree or a...
Edelwood.
Edelwood tree.
Which are like trees made out of humans. Gross.
Yeah.
But they defeat the beast after figuring out the secret, which is the lantern that is held by the woodsman holds the soul of
the beast
itself and not his daughter. Mm-hmm. But after the story's concluded, they best the beast. Wirt has the epiphany that he can kind of face his fears and confront things, and Jason Thunderburger can suck on eggs. Yeah.
I love that. The beast is basically a metaphor for fear.
Yes,
and like
not Jason Thunderburger.
No, not Jason Thunderburger.
My thing that I absolutely loved from this is that the beast feeds and can only live on your toil to feed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this thing about your beliefs that you have and the work you put in to feed your own fears.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, teach this to children.
Yeah. And they did. This is a kid's show. They did do it.
It's fantastic, yeah.
It's such a good message at the end. It's like, no, just be confident. Like really, it's a lot of working together to conquer your fears.
Oh, yes. The core thing here is so many problems are solved because of the combination of Gregory's happiness and happy-go-lucky whatnot, and Wirt's moodiness. Yeah. They really got through this together.
They're each other's yin and yang kind of deal.
Oh, so magical.
It's so good. I like to think that some part of Over the Garden Wall's world is real, because we got to get a nice kind of catching up with everyone. Beatrice becomes real, or not real. She becomes a human again.
Yes.
And she gets to see her family again. The pumpkin people are skeletons. Yes. The Grand Poobah pumpkin is just a cat.
It's just a cat.
It's just a cat and a pumpkin.
And black cats represent death as well, so that helps back that up.
The thing that I remember that will support this entirely, the way Auntie Whispers controls the lady who is going to eat people is by ringing a bell.
Yes.
Gregory's frog eats the bell, and by shaking the frog, he can control her. When they get back to the real world, he shakes the frog and the stomach glows.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So there's something about that was real.
Yeah. But it's a classic, like, Inception thing, whereas, is it real? Is it not real?
Does it matter if we learned to face our fears?
The final line of the song is the loveliest lies of all. And that it's well regarded among storytellers that that's what stories are. They're the loveliest lies that we can tell each other as a society. And I think that's what this was. It was a lovely story where neither half existed because it's a cartoon show, so therefore it may as well all be real.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Cartoon. Oh, kids' imaginations, cartoon, fantasy.
Terrific.
Oh.
Just to wrap things up here, Jason, you might have a better idea of this with you having a younger brother, but what sort of age range do we think this is appropriate for if we're to give that not suitable for adults recommendation for any parents who are listening?
I think that 3rd to 4th grade is a great year to start this. I think my brother was at having him consumed as much as he's consumed.
Yeah.
He's out now at the maturity level that he could kind of grasp or start to grasp some of the larger meanings of this.
Yes.
I think it's only at this recent age that I think he would have fully appreciated the whimsical nature of things.
Okay.
The idea that, like, they would have said, oh, I can't raise enough money for the school. Plus, there's that gorilla running around. That kind of comedic pacing, I think he's only been able to grasp recently. That being said, you can probably start earlier.
Yeah.
But I think full appreciation of how good this show or how cute this show could have been started for my brother around 9 or 8.
Yeah. It feels like the preteen kind of age.
Yeah.
Like middle school, maybe even slightly younger. 7 to 12 is what I had written down in my notes in terms of the perfect age that I would like to be.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have been to watch this.
7 to 12, yeah.
Mm-hmm. As someone who is a very frightened child, the episodes are 10 minutes long. Watch the first 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have a child in the 7 to 12 range or older, see how you feel.
Mm-hmm. And I think if you haven't loved it by the 3rd episode, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
Because the 3rd episode is pretty peak Over the Garden Wall.
But if you don't love it, also, what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks again to Rich and Natalie for taking part in Podcast Secret Santa and therefore allowing us to have a go at hosting their brilliant show. If you're listening to this because of us and the Drinkipedia side of things, you can follow them on Twitter at Not4AdultsCast. That's the number 4, not the word. Subscribe to their feed on your chosen podcatcher, especially if you're listening to this and you've got kids, because that's even more relevant. They've got excellent reviews and recommendations.
I'm so happy that we got to do this so that I could watch this show.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great opportunity.
I don't know if I would have watched this show otherwise, I'll be honest.
Me neither. We have been Drinkipedia. You can follow us on Twitter at DrinkipediaPod. We're a podcast/drinking game where someone has a week to learn 2 topics before getting drunk to deliver a pair of liquored up lectures. We're basically like drunk history, but for the full curriculum.
That show is not suitable for children.
Yes, good point.
I'll tell you that right
now.
Not
suitable for children. Don't listen with your kids. Yeah. All right, thanks for this opportunity, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.